Okay, let's just dive right in with a really wild thought. What if everything you see, everything you touch, your entire three-dimensional world was all just an elaborate projection? Today, we're exploring a mind-bending theory that suggests our universe might actually be a hologram.
I know, it sounds like pure science fiction, right? But some of the world's most brilliant physicists are taking this question very seriously. The core idea is that the reality we experience isn't the fundamental truth. It's more like an image being projected from a distant, much flatter reality. And it all kicks off with one of the most powerful ideas in modern physics.
And that idea is called the holographic principle. It basically suggests that if you want to understand our 3D universe, you shouldn't look inside it. You should look at its boundary. All the information that makes up you, me, the stars, everything, it's all written on a distant 2D surface. And weirdly enough, the very first clue that this might be true came from the deepest, darkest, most mysterious objects in the entire cosmos, black holes. So let's get into it. The black hole's secret. Now, I get it. A black hole seems like a strange place to start a conversation about our own reality. But you have to stick with me here, because it was in trying to understand these cosmic monsters that physicists stumbled onto a paradox so huge it threatened to break the fundamental laws of physics. Well, back in the 1970s, physicists like Jacob Bekenstein and Stephen Hawking found something completely bizarre. You see, in a normal room, the more space, the more volume you have, the more stuff you can fit inside. Simple enough. But a black hole? Nope, it doesn't work that way. A black hole's information capacity has nothing to do with its 3D volume. It depends only on its 2D surface area, that edge we call the event horizon. It's as if everything about what's inside is somehow written on the outside. And then Stephen Hawking dropped an even bigger bombshell. He figured out that black holes, well, they aren't completely black. Right at the event horizon, tiny pairs of virtual particles constantly pop into existence. Sometimes one falls in and the other one escapes, carrying away a tiny bit of the black hole's energy. Over billions and billions of years, this slow leak, called Hawking radiation, means the black hole will eventually completely evaporate. And that created a massive problem. You see, one of the most sacred, fundamental laws of quantum physics is that information can never be destroyed. So if a star, a planet, an entire civilization falls into a black hole, and that black hole later just vanishes, where did all that information go? It can't just be deleted. This crisis was known as the information loss paradox.
And the solution they came up with was revolutionary. The information isn't lost because it never truly gets lost inside the 3D part. Instead, as something crosses that event horizon, all of its information gets imprinted or encoded right onto the 2D surface. You can think of it like a cosmic firewall. The 3D object is gone, but its complete blueprint is saved on that 2D boundary. And this was the first huge hint that maybe, just maybe, a 3D space could be fully described by a 2D surface.
Okay, this brings us to our next big idea. Information creates reality. This is where the concept just explodes in scale. Physicists thought, wait a minute, if a black hole's 3D interior can be described by its 2D surface, what if our entire 3D universe can be described by some distant 2D boundary? This is what took us from a weird fact about black holes to a radical new theory about reality itself.
And this absolutely grand idea was captured perfectly by the legendary physicist John Archibald Wheeler in just 3 simple words: it from bit. Now, this flips our entire understanding of the world completely on its head. We usually think of, say, a coffee mug as a real it, a physical thing, and the idea of a mug is the bit, the information that describes it. Wheeler's idea is that the fundamental reality is the information, the bit, and the mug we see and touch is just the physical manifestation of that code. The universe at its absolute core isn't made of matter, it's made of information. A really great way to get your head around this is to think of a video game. The immersive 3D world you're exploring on screen feels totally real, right? But at its most basic level, what is it? It's just ones and zeros. It's pure information. The physical reality of that game is just a rendering of the underlying code. So if our universe is like the video game, what's the processor? What's running the code? Well, in this theory, it's not some physical computer chip. The screen and the processor are one and the same, a fundamental non-physical reality that physicists call the quantum field. It's like this ocean of potential, a mathematical structure that processes information and projects it as the physical reality we all experience. All right, so if reality is just processed information, That forces us to look at the most complex information processor we know of, the human brain. And this raises an even deeper question, one that science has wrestled with for centuries. What about our own conscious experience?
Neuroscientist David Chalmers famously called this the hard problem. You see, science is great at explaining the mechanics of the brain, how light of a certain wavelength hits our retina and triggers all these neural signals, no problem. But what science has zero explanation for is the subjective, private feeling of what it's actually like to see the color red. That inner experience, that's the mystery.
This really brings us to two radically different views of the universe. The conventional view is that physical stuff, matter, is fundamental, and that consciousness somehow, magically, emerges from it, like in a complex brain. But the holographic principle and it from bit point to a much, much wilder possibility. What if a fundamental consciousness is the bit, and the physical world, including our brains, is the it that emerges from it? And this is where things get truly fascinating. This radical idea from the absolute frontiers of physics, that consciousness could be fundamental, it isn't new. Not at all. In fact, it bears a striking resemblance to ideas from ancient philosophy, specifically the Vedic traditions of India. In the school of philosophy known as Advaita Vedanta, the fundamental substrate of the universe is called Brahman, and the description is just striking. It's not a person, it's not a deity, it's a formless, non-physical, fundamental, and conscious foundation from which all of physical existence appears. Sound familiar? Brahman is defined as Sat Chit Ananda, which basically translates to pure existence, pure consciousness, and pure completeness. In this view, Chit, or pure consciousness, is the fundamental bit from which Sat, the physical existence, or it, appears. I mean, come on, that is essentially an ancient philosophical version of it from bit. So here's the crucial point. We have two frameworks from completely opposite ends of human history, and they're both arriving at a remarkably similar conclusion. One, modern physics, proposes the physical reality arises from a non-physical substrate of information. The other, ancient Vedanta, proposes that it arises from a non-physical substrate of consciousness. And so this leaves us with a final, profound question. We started by asking if our reality is an illusion. Now we have to ask, what is the fundamental fabric of that reality? Is it matter? Is it information? Or is it consciousness? You know, the most mind-bending possibility is that information, the language of physics, and consciousness, the language of experience, are just two different words for the exact same thing, the ultimate foundation of everything.